Before we begin, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. If you like my stories, please consider giving me like and subscribe. It means the whole world to me. Enjoy the stories, and I hope you get the scare you're looking for. I always thought I was too smart to be scared by stories about the dark web. Most of them sounded like badly written creepypasta. Over-the-top horror meant to shock teenagers into thinking they'd stumbled across forbidden knowledge. I'd read dozens of them, laughed at most, and dismissed the rest as urban legends or attempts at online fame. That was before I got curious enough to try it myself. I wasn't doing it for thrills. It started as research for a college paper. I was in a digital forensics class, and my professor talked briefly about the hidden parts of the internet. Not just the dark web, but the deep web too. He mentioned black markets, illicit trades, rumors of human trafficking rings, and bizarre subcultures lurking where most search engines couldn't go. He wasn't trying to encourage anyone, just giving a clinical overview, but I could tell he was fascinated by it all. So I got interested too. It didn't take long to find a basic guide. Tor browser, VPN, disconnect from your personal accounts, the usual safety precautions. I followed every step, not because I thought it would help, but because I wanted to feel like I was doing something serious, something real. At first, what I found was almost disappointing. There were marketplaces, sure, and forums where people traded stolen data and weird images, but nothing felt dark enough to live up to the stories. Then I found the page. It didn't have a name. It had no graphics, no banner, no menu, just a black screen with a line of white text in the center. Do you want to see something real? There was no cursor, no prompt, but somehow I knew I could type. I typed yes and hit enter. The page didn't reload. The text just disappeared, replaced by another message. This is not a game. If you continue, you cannot go back. Again, I typed yes. The screen went blank. I waited. Then something strange happened. My webcam light flicked on. I hadn't opened any software that used it. I tried to close the browser, but nothing responded. Even Ctrl-Alt-Delete didn't work. The light stayed on. For a moment, I stared into it, frozen. Then the screen changed again. Now there was a video. Not of me. Not yet. It showed a room. Bare, with concrete walls and a metal chair in the center. Fluorescent light buzzed overhead. A man entered the frame, dragging someone behind him. The person was bound, hooded, struggling. The man tied them to the chair, then left the frame. The feed stayed on the bound figure for a long time. I thought maybe it was a sick prank, something staged. The quality wasn't great, but it looked real. Too real. I waited, eyes locked on the screen, telling myself I could shut it down any time, that I would. Then the man came back with a box of tools. What followed wasn't quick. It wasn't dramatic. It was methodical. He started small, breaking fingers, pulling out fingernails. The victim thrashed, muffled screams echoing off the walls. I tried to stop watching, but I couldn't move. Something deeper than shock kept me rooted there. The camera never moved. The lighting never changed. I sat and watched for what felt like hours. When it was over, the screen went black again. My webcam light turned off. My mouse started working. Everything returned to normal. I closed the browser and sat in silence, heart pounding. I felt disgusting, violated, like I'd just participated in something evil by watching it. But the worst part was the last message I saw before closing the tab. You watched, now they're watching you. I told myself it was a joke, just another twisted story designed to prey on gullible thrill seekers. I tried to forget about it. I even uninstalled the browser, wiped my laptop, reset everything. But I couldn't sleep. I kept dreaming about the room, the chair, the screams. Every shadow looked like a man carrying a box of tools, and then the photos started. The first one came in my email. No subject, no body, just an image attachment. It was my apartment door, taken from the hallway. I hadn't given my address to anyone. The next day, another email. This time, it was a photo of me inside my kitchen, taken through the window. The day after that, a shot of me sleeping. I went to the police. They didn't help. I didn't have a stalker's name, no license plates, no suspects. They suggested I move, or at least install better locks, and maybe a camera of my own. But what good would that do? They were already inside. I started staying up all night, lights on, baseball bat by the bed. Every sound made me jump. I didn't leave the apartment unless I had to. The emails kept coming. I stopped opening them, but that didn't stop them from arriving. One night, I left the computer unplugged. The next morning, a photo of me asleep appeared on my phone. It was taken from the foot of the bed. I moved. New place, new number, new laptop. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't leave a trace. I paid in cash. I thought I could outsmart whoever it was. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. I started to feel safe again. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe it really had been some elaborate prank, and they'd gotten bored. Then, one morning, I woke up and found a note taped to the inside of my front door. "You're part of it now." No signature, no explanation, just those 5 words, scrawled in the same plain font as the messages on the site. My phone rang 2 seconds later. No number, just a black screen. I answered. No voice, just breathing. I hung up. It rang again immediately. Same result. After the 5th call, I smashed the phone. It didn't matter. I wasn't safe. I was never going to be safe again. I didn't sleep for 3 days after that. When I finally passed out, it was in the corner of my living room with all the lights on and a knife in my hand. I dreamed of the room again. The chair was empty this time, but the tools were still there, waiting. The man wasn't in the frame, but I knew he was behind the camera. When I woke up, the power was out. My apartment was pitch black. No hum from the fridge, no glow from the outlets. I checked the hallway. The rest of the building still had power, just me. My laptop, which I hadn't touched in weeks, sat open on the floor. The screen glowed faintly. A message was typed in a notepad window. "You could have looked away." I didn't leave that day, or the next. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I just sat in the corner and waited. For what? I wasn't sure. A knock? A scream? The sound of something dragging across the floor? But nothing came. Just silence. Then, a new message appeared on the laptop. "Ready for the next show?" No browser, no internet. Just text, appearing one line at a time. I didn't type anything, didn't touch the keyboard. Another line followed. "This time, you choose who." Below that, a list of names appeared. Names I recognized. Friends, family, my old professor, my ex. Even the cop who'd taken my original report. Next to each name was a button. Select. I shut the laptop. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I came back, the screen was dark, but I knew it wasn't over. It would never be over. Not until I picked someone. Not until I passed the sickness on. I left that apartment and haven't stopped moving since. Motels, rest stops, couch surfing, no phone, no computer. I write this now by hand, planning to send it anonymously to as many people as I can. Maybe someone will believe me. Maybe someone will read it before clicking yes, because they're still out there, watching, waiting for the next person to get curious, for the next fool who thinks they're too smart to fall for a scary story. Don't go looking for the page. Don't say yes, or the next show will be yours. The first time I heard about the dark web, it was from a friend who whispered about it like it was some kind of forbidden secret. He told me about hidden sites, things you couldn't find on the regular internet, places where people sold things no one should ever sell, where secrets were traded like currency, and where the curious often disappeared. I didn't believe him at first, but then I went looking. It started with a simple search, a few downloaded tools, and before I knew it, I was in. The surface was unsettling enough. Black markets, illegal services, things that made my skin crawl. But I wasn't there for that. I was there for the stories, the real ones, the ones people only talked about in hushed tones. I found a forum buried deep, a place where users shared their experiences. Most were fake, obvious creepypasta nonsense, but one thread caught my eye. The title was simple: "I found something I shouldn't have." The post was written by a user who claimed they'd stumbled upon a site with no name, just a string of numbers and letters. They described it as a live feed, a window into somewhere else. At first, they thought it was just a looped recording, a dimly lit room, empty except for a single chair in the center. But then, something moved. A figure, barely visible in the shadows, had stepped into frame. It didn't walk right. Its limbs twitched, jerking unnaturally as it circled the chair. The user closed the site immediately, but that night they swore they heard something scratching at their door. I should have stopped there, but I didn't. I copied the string from the post and typed it in. The page loaded slowly, the screen flickering as if struggling to display what was on the other side. Then, there it was. The room, the chair, just like they'd described. Nothing moved at first. The room was silent, empty. I waited, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, ready to close it at any second. Then, the shadows shifted. A shape detached itself from the darkness, creeping forward on all fours. It was human, but wrong. Too thin, its spine jutting out at sharp angles, its head lolling to one side as it dragged itself closer to the chair. It stopped, tilting its face up toward the camera. There were no eyes, just black holes where they should have been. I slammed my laptop shut, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. It was just a video, a sick, twisted video. That's all. But that night I heard it, a soft, wet sound like something dragging itself across the floor. It came from the hallway. I told myself it was the house settling, the pipes, anything but what my mind was screaming at me. Then, the scratching started, slow at first, then harder, like something was trying to claw its way in. I didn't sleep. The next day, I went back to the forum. The post was gone, deleted. The user's account, wiped, like they'd never existed. I tried to forget about it, but the thing is, once you see something like that, it doesn't let go. A week later, I opened my laptop to find the site already loaded. The room was there, the chair, and this time, the thing was sitting in it. Its head snapped up the second the screen lit up, as if it knew I was watching. Its mouth stretched into a grin too wide for its face, splitting open to reveal rows of needle-thin teeth. Then it spoke. "You shouldn't have come back." The voice wasn't coming from my speakers. It was behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The smell hit me first, rotting meat, damp earth. Then the sound of bones cracking as it unfolded itself, standing tall, taller than any person should be. Its hand landed on my shoulder, cold and too long, fingers curling like spider legs. "Now you're part of the feed." The last thing I saw before the screen went black was my own face, staring back at me from the chair, and I was smiling. The first time I heard about it was from a friend who shouldn't have been talking about it at all. He was nervous, his fingers tapping relentlessly against his coffee cup, eyes darting around the dimly lit diner like he was being watched. "There's a place," he whispered, "where you can find anything, and I mean anything." I laughed it off at first. The dark web wasn't exactly new to me. I'd browsed forums, seen the strange markets, even stumbled upon a few unsettling things I wished I hadn't. But the way he spoke about this particular corner of the web made my skin prickle. "It's not just a site," he said. "It's a place, and once you're in, it knows you." I should have left it alone, but curiosity has a way of gnawing at you, digging its claws in deep until you have no choice but to scratch the itch. That night, with the lights off and the glow of my laptop the only illumination, I followed his instructions. A special browser, a series of encrypted hops, and then a string of characters that didn't look like any URL I'd ever seen. I entered it. The page loaded slowly, lines of text appearing one by one as if being typed in real time. "Welcome." That was all it said at first. Then more words formed beneath it. "You shouldn't be here." I smirked. Cheap theatrics. I'd seen horror movies. This was just someone's idea of a scare. I clicked around expecting a marketplace or a forum, but the page was blank except for that text. Then a prompt appeared at the bottom. "Ask and you will see." I hesitated. This was stupid. But then what was the harm? I typed the first thing that came to mind. "Show me something real." The screen flickered. For a second, I thought the connection had dropped. Then an image began to load. It was a room. A dim concrete room with a single chair in the center. On the chair sat a figure, hooded, head bowed. The image was grainy, but I could see the way their shoulders rose and fell with slow, ragged breaths. A video feed, live. My pulse quickened. I reached for the mouse to close the tab, but before I could, text appeared on the screen again. "Do you want to see more?" I shouldn't have clicked yes. The image expanded, filling the screen. The hooded figure's head slowly lifted. The face beneath was wrong, not human. Too long, too sharp, the eyes black pits that seemed to stare right through the screen. right at me. I slammed the laptop shut. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath coming in short gasps. It was just a prank, a deep fake, someone messing with me. I forced myself to open the laptop again, ready to delete everything, but the screen was black. Then, words appeared. You looked. I shut it again, this time for good. I unplugged the router, turned off my phone, and sat in the dark, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But that night, I dreamed of the figure, of the way its mouth stretched into a grin too wide for its face. The next morning, I told myself it was over. I'd stay off the dark web, forget about it. But when I turned on my phone, there was a message from my friend. Just 2 words. It knows. I called him immediately. No answer. I drove to his apartment, pounding on the door until a neighbor told me the police had been by earlier. No one would say why. That's when I noticed the marks on my doorframe. Tiny scratches like something had been clawing at it from the outside. I packed a bag and left. Checked into a motel under a fake name, paid in cash. I thought I was safe. But that night, as I lay in bed, my laptop, which I hadn't even brought with me, chimed from the desk. I hadn't turned it on. The screen glowed to life, the same text appearing. You can't hide. Then the video feed returned. The room, the chair. But this time the figure wasn't alone. My friend sat beside it, his face pale, his eyes wide with terror. The figure leaned close to him, its mouth moving, though I couldn't hear the words. Then it turned to the camera. You're next. The screen went black. And somewhere in the dark of the motel room I heard a whisper. I'm here. I never should have clicked on that last link. I was always curious about the darker corners of the internet. It started as harmless exploration, just an interest in technology and internet anonymity. My friends thought it was strange, but I brushed them off. They watched horror movies to get scared. I dove into forums and watched leaked footage of old, untraceable broadcasts. I wanted to understand how deep things went. After a while, though, the surface-level weirdness wasn't enough. I'd seen the creepy YouTube knockoffs, heard the stories about secret societies and black market trafficking, but it all felt staged, like internet urban legends someone built a website around. I wanted to find something real. So I found an invite-only forum buried beneath a maze of Tor layers, VPN chains, and encrypted IRC chats. It was just called The Library. The front page was nothing, just a black screen with text. No fancy banners or logos. The design was ancient HTML, probably from the late 90s. There were no graphics, no flashy links, just a menu with 5 folders. Each one had a vague name: history, records, viewings, rooms, and tools. At first, I hovered over viewings but chickened out. I clicked records instead. Inside was a list of plain text files. No explanations, no formatting. I opened a few, expecting garbage, ASCII art, maybe a manifesto. But these were transcripts, real ones, or at least they read like it. One was a therapist's notes. It documented sessions with a patient who claimed she was being followed by someone that only appeared when she blinked. The doctor, skeptical at first, slowly started changing his tone across the logs, getting increasingly nervous. The last few entries were messy, like they'd been typed in a rush. The final one just ended mid-sentence. Another file was a police interview, a teenager describing a room in his house that shouldn't exist. Every time he opened his closet door, it led to a different version of his house, slightly off, like in a dream. Eventually, he stopped coming out of the closet entirely. I spent hours reading them. Some were boring. Others were too detailed to be fake. You can tell when someone's making stuff up. These had inconsistencies, realistic grammar errors, hesitation markers, stuff only real people say. I told myself it was just creative writing, maybe a community project. I didn't sleep that night. The next evening, I went back to the library and opened viewings. This time, I had the lights off. There were dozens of entries, each a small video file with a vague name. Witness 01, Host 02, Surveillance 14. I clicked one labeled Surveillance 09. The video was grainy, black and white, like old security footage. It showed a hallway, dimly lit, long. Nothing happened for the first minute. Then a door at the far end opened, and someone stepped out. The person didn't walk, just appeared to glide forward like frames were missing. Their face was covered with a cloth, and they were holding something in their hand. I leaned closer. It looked like a mirror. They moved down the hallway, pausing occasionally to tilt the mirror toward the camera, as if trying to reflect something. I felt my skin crawl. Then, just before reaching the lens, the video glitched and ended. I stared at the screen. My reflection in the black monitor looked distorted. Wrong. I shut my laptop and sat in the dark for a while, listening to the silence. The next night, I clicked into the folder called Rooms. It required a password. I didn't have one, but I remembered that in one of the therapist transcripts, there was a phrase the patient kept repeating: "There is no floor." On a whim, I typed it in. It worked. Inside Rooms was a list of servers, each labeled with a single word: chamber, hall, attic, cellar. I clicked on cellar. A loading screen appeared, followed by a low-resolution live stream. The image was shaky. It showed a room made of stone, lit by a single bulb swinging from the ceiling. In the center was a chair. Someone was sitting in it. Their head was covered with a bag. I stared at the feed, waiting for movement. Nothing happened for a full 5 minutes. Then the person twitched. The bag moved slightly. It looked like they were breathing. Suddenly, the feed cut to black. When it returned, the chair was empty. No explanation, no sound. I shut the browser, heart pounding. It was probably staged. A prank. A performance art piece. But something about the lighting, the silence, the grain of the image, it didn't feel fake. Over the next week, I kept going back. Every night. The folder Rooms had new servers each time. One night, I entered a room called the nursery. It was a live view of a child's bedroom, toys on the floor. The camera was pointed at the bed, no child in sight. After a few minutes, a lullaby started playing softly. Then the toys moved, just a little, like someone had nudged them. I closed the window. My sleep was broken by whispers I couldn't locate. I'd see movement in the corners of my room, just flashes. I tried to tell myself it was paranoia, but the feeling didn't go away. One day, I noticed something different in the records folder. A new file had appeared at the top. It was named after my IP address. I opened it. Inside were time-stamped entries, logs. It described everything I had done for the past few days, including things I hadn't done online. One line read, "He hesitates before entering the nursery. His breath shortens. He looks over his shoulder." I hadn't told anyone about that. Another entry read, "He will return to the hallway. He will not like what he sees." I didn't want to go back, but I had to know. I clicked on the viewings folder again and found a new video labeled Hallway 57. It opened on my street. It was a shaky, handheld camera pointed at the sidewalk across from my house. I saw my front door, my window, the blinds half closed. The camera zoomed in slowly. I watched myself sit down at my desk on the screen. The person filming didn't move, just stood there, watching. The video ended without a sound. I called the police. They came, took a report, but couldn't do anything. I didn't show them the site. I just told them someone was filming me. They said to keep my doors locked and to call if anything happened again. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with a knife in my hand, lights off, watching my front door. Around 3 a.m, my laptop screen lit up by itself. No sound, no alert, just a new window open on the screen. It was a black page with one sentence in white text. "Stop watching us." I unplugged everything, packed my laptop in a bag, and threw it in a dumpster across town. I moved 2 weeks later, different city, different name, new laptop. I didn't use Tor again. I didn't even browse at night. But the dreams didn't stop. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, hearing static and whispers. Always the same phrase repeating, "There is no floor." One day, I was walking through the grocery store and saw a man standing at the end of the aisle. He was wearing a coat too heavy for the weather. His face was obscured, not with a mask, but with some kind of distortion. It was like his features didn't match reality, as if the light bent wrong around him. He raised something shiny toward me. I blinked, and he was gone. That night, I went to bed early. I tried reading, anything to avoid closing my eyes. Just before I drifted off, I heard a soft tap, tap, tap on the window. 3 soft knocks. Then silence. I lived on the 5th floor. I stayed perfectly still. The next morning, there were handprints on the outside of the glass, smudged, faint, but definitely there. I moved again. I changed everything, burned my old journals, smashed the backup drive I had. I tried to bury that part of my life so deep it couldn't follow me. But it does. Sometimes when I'm walking alone, I feel like I'm being followed by someone I can't see. I catch glimpses of movement in reflections that don't match the real world. Streetlights flicker when I pass under them. My phone vibrates with no notifications. I haven't told anyone. I don't know if this story will even reach anyone. But if you're reading this, if you ever find a site called the library, if you ever see folders labeled rooms or viewings, close your browser and never, ever look into the mirror when the screen goes black. The room was dim, lit only by the faint glow of a laptop screen casting eerie shadows across the walls. The air was thick with the hum of the cooling fan and the faint scent of stale coffee. He sat hunched over the desk, his hood pulled low over his face, fingers hovering above the keyboard as if unsure whether to proceed. For months, he had heard whispers about the dark web, stories of hidden marketplaces, forbidden knowledge, and things no one dared speak of in the light of day. Curiosity had gnawed at him, a persistent itch he could no longer ignore. Tonight, he decided, would be the night he crossed that invisible line. He had done his homework, or at least as much as he could without drawing attention. A friend, someone he trusted but barely knew, had slipped him a guide, a few scribbled notes on a crumpled piece of paper about how to access the unindexed corners of the internet. It started with a browser, one designed to hide his tracks, and a series of steps to mask his location. He downloaded the software, installed it with a shaking hand, and watched as the familiar interface of his usual browsing gave way to a stark, minimalist screen. The guide mentioned a marketplace, a place where anything could be bought or sold if you knew where to look. He typed in the address, a string of letters and numbers that meant nothing to him, and hit enter. The screen flickered, and a new page loaded. It was crude, almost like something from the early days of the internet, with a black background and white text. No flashy ads, no banners, just a list of categories that made his stomach turn. Weapons, drugs, stolen data, and worse. He scrolled slowly, his breath shallow, half expecting the screen to go black or for someone to kick down his door. But nothing happened. The site was quiet, waiting for him to make a move. He clicked on a forum link, hoping to find answers rather than goods. The threads were a chaotic mess of text, some in languages he didn't recognize, others in broken English. People talked about deals gone wrong, about users vanishing without a trace, and about a place deeper still, a hidden layer where the real secrets lived. His curiosity deepened. He read about a site that required an invitation, a digital key to unlock its doors. The forum users spoke of it in hushed tones, warning that once you entered, there was no going back. He found a thread offering the key for a price, but the payment method was cryptocurrency, something he had never used. It took hours to set up a wallet, buy the coins from an exchange, and send the payment through a mixer to cover his tracks. When the response came, it was a single line of code. He copied it, pasted it into the browser, and watched as a new page materialized. This site was different. The design was cleaner, almost professional, but the content was darker. It wasn't just about illegal goods anymore. It was about information, secrets for sale, hacked government files, private emails, surveillance footage. He navigated cautiously, reading descriptions that promised access to things he couldn't unsee. One listing caught his eye, a video file labeled simply "The Room." The seller claimed it showed something real, something no one else had dared to record. The price was steep, but he had enough coins left. He made the purchase, and within minutes, a download link appeared. His hands trembled as he clicked it. The file was large, taking time to transfer, and the wait only heightened his unease. When it finally opened, the video began with static, then a shaky handheld shot of a dimly lit space. The camera panned across concrete walls, damp and stained, until it settled on a figure in the corner. The person was motionless, head bowed, hands bound behind their back. The audio was faint, a low murmur of voices just out of reach. The camera moved closer, and the figure lifted their head, revealing a face obscured by shadows. A voice off-screen spoke, cold and deliberate, giving instructions that made no sense at first. Then the scene shifted, and he wished he could stop watching. The acts that followed were brutal, methodical, and unlike anything he had ever imagined. He slammed the laptop shut, his heart pounding, bile rising in his throat. For days, he couldn't shake the images. They haunted his dreams, creeping into his waking hours. He told himself he wouldn't go back, that he had seen enough, but the pull was stronger than his resolve. He reopened the browser, returning to the site, telling himself he needed to understand. The forum was buzzing with new posts, and one caught his attention. A user claimed to have found a chat room linked to the video, a place where the sellers and buyers met. The user provided a code to join. Against his better judgment, he entered it. The chat room was a void of text, names replaced by random strings of letters. He lurked, reading exchanges about the video, about others like it. Some users bragged, others asked questions, but one message stood out. Someone offered a live feed, a chance to watch in real time. The price was exorbitant, but the promise of seeing the truth drew him in. He sent the payment, and a link appeared. The feed loaded slowly, revealing a similar concrete room, but this time the figure was awake, struggling against their restraints. The chat exploded with comments, some cheering, others debating the authenticity. He watched, frozen, as the scene unfolded, the same cold voice directing the actions. When it ended, the screen went black, and a new message popped up. "You're in now." Panic set in. He tried to close the browser, but it wouldn't shut down. The screen refreshed, showing a new interface. His username, the one he had created, was listed among others, marked with a red dot. A private message arrived, addressing him by that name. The sender knew he had watched, knew he had paid. They offered him a choice: join or be exposed. The terms were vague, participation in exchange for silence, but the threat was clear. He felt trapped, the walls of his room closing in. He typed a response, asking for time to decide, and the reply came instantly. Clock's ticking. He spent the next hours pacing, his mind racing. He considered going to the authorities, but the guide had warned about that. Once you're in, they watch you. He thought about wiping his device, starting over, but the message hinted they had his identity. Desperation led him back to the forum, searching for an escape. A buried thread mentioned a hacker who could erase your digital footprint, but it came with a cost and a risk. He contacted the user, sending a plea for help. The response was a set of instructions. Meet in a public place, bring cash, and follow every step. He agreed, knowing it might be his only chance. The meeting was tense. He sat on a bench in a crowded park, an envelope of money hidden in his jacket. A figure approached, unremarkable in a baseball cap and sunglasses, and sat beside him. The exchange was quick: cash for a USB drive and a whispered warning to never return. Back home, he plugged the drive into his laptop. A program ran, deleting files, scrambling data, and overwriting his browser history. The screen went dark, and when it rebooted, the dark web was gone from his system. He felt a momentary relief, but it was short-lived. Days later, he noticed things. A car parked too long across the street, a shadow moving past his window at night. His phone buzzed with unknown numbers, messages that deleted themselves. He couldn't prove it, but he knew they were watching. The video, the chat, the threats, they had left a mark he couldn't erase. He stopped using his laptop, unplugged it, and left it in a drawer. But the fear remained, a constant companion. He started hearing noises, faint taps on the walls, whispers in the silence. He told himself it was paranoia, but deep down, he knew the dark web had taken something from him. One night, unable to sleep, he dug out the laptop and powered it on. The browser was gone, the files erased, but a new message waited in his email, a single line: "We see you." He threw the device against the wall, shattering the screen, but the words lingered. He moved out of the apartment, changed his number, tried to rebuild. Yet every creak in his new place, every unfamiliar face, reminded him of that night. The dark web had opened a door, and though he had tried to close it, something had slipped through. He lived with that knowledge, a shadow that followed him, waiting for the moment he might look back again. Thank you for listening. Hope I didn't scare you too much. If you like my stories, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. See you next time.